Upfront Books presents How Risky Is It Really? Written by David Ropeik and narrated by TJ Johnson. With your purchase of this audiobook, you've received a PDF containing the What's Your Risk Response exercises in each chapter, as well as several figures referenced throughout the book. You'll get the most out of this book by referring to the figures in the PDF when noted. Copyright 2010 by David Ropeik. This audiobook is published by arrangement with McGraw Hill LLC and was produced in the year 2020 by Upfront Books, which holds the copyright thereto. Dedications. To Toby, for her wisdom, patience, insight, and support. To Rachel, Matt, and Ina for their ideas and enthusiasm. To Misha and Yuri for waiting so patiently to go for their daily walk. And to my friends and fellow travelers, may you make healthy choices. Introduction. By the animal instinct that is awakened in us, we are led and protected. It is not conscious. It is far quicker, much more sure, less fallible than consciousness. Eric Maria Remarque, All Quiet on the Western Front. The auditorium was jammed. The TV cameras were lined up down in front, aimed back at the crowd, ready to roll at the first loud voice. The moderator opened the floor to comments. Susan Napolitano leaped to her feet, her eyes wide and her face red. That school could give our children cancer. We demand that you close it and clean it up before our children have to go back there. She screamed at the officials sitting at the head table. Stabbing her finger at them, she yelled, "You are not our children's parents. You will not decide whether they live or die." Sitting next to her, Susan's 10-year-old daughter Steffi looked up at her mom, a little embarrassed at and a little proud of her mother's public display of passion on her behalf. Steffi was a student at a public elementary school in a Boston suburb where trace amounts of the chemical trichloroethylene, TCE, had been found in the air of the library and one third-grade classroom. TCE is a confirmed carcinogen, but at the low levels found in the school, just a few molecules of TCE per trillion molecules of air, even the most aggressive public health experts said that there was no threat. The TCE levels were well within safety standards. There was no danger. But that didn't matter to Susan. As reporters flocked around her after the meeting, she told them that she was convinced Steffi could get cancer if she attended the school, and she was willing to do anything necessary to get the school closed, even though that might mean taking kids who mostly walk to school and busing them to other classrooms around town on sometimes icy winter New England streets, disrupting their education and spending tens of thousands of dollars from the school department's already tight budget to institute those changes, all to eliminate a risk that, according to the scientific evidence, wasn't a risk at all. Susan stood there in front of the TV cameras and reporters, flushed with passion, with Steffi at her side. And as she talked about her fear of those trace amounts of TCE, she anxiously puffed away on her 10th cigarette of the night. And mother and daughter were also taking another big risk. Both were significantly overweight. You've probably seen the same phenomenon in your family or friends, or maybe within yourself, where the fears don't seem to match the facts. It happens to all of us. Sometimes we're more afraid of what the scientific evidence suggests are relatively small risks, but quite often we aren't afraid enough of the risks that the evidence suggests we should worry about more. This sort of risk perception is often explained by blaming the media and politicians and marketers and poor risk communication, but that is simplistic, naive, and inadequate. The first goal of How Risky Is It Really is to explain in much greater depth where our perceptions of risk actually come from. It's far more complicated than scary headlines and fear-mongering politicians. Fascinating discoveries in neuroscience, psychology, sociology, anthropology, and economics help explain the underlying roots of the way we respond to risk, and why most of us at one time or another are more afraid of relatively smaller threats or less afraid of relatively big ones. The second goal is to make the case that this phenomenon, which I'll call the perception gap, can be dangerous, a risk in and of itself. We often get risk right, making judgments that work out for the best. But when we get risk wrong, it can be dangerous. Susan was so afraid of trace amounts of chemicals in her daughter's school, for reasons to be explained in the chapters ahead, that she was willing, even eager, to subject Steffi to the greater danger of riding school buses on snowy streets and to have Steffi's education seriously disrupted to avoid a risk that the experts said was just not there. At the same time, Susan chain-smoked and was seriously overweight, but she didn't seem as concerned about these much greater hazards to her health for reasons that will also be explained, which not only imperiled Susan but increased the chances that by the time Steffi got to high school, she might not have a mom.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?